What's good, everybody? King Dre back at it with another video. This time I just want to discuss some monsters that may be potential returning monsters for Monster Hunter Wilds based on the monster roster that we have so far in Wilds. Obviously we've had a few game shows, we've had Gamescom, we've had Tokyo Game Show, we've had plenty of trailers including one in the PlayStation State of Play, and we have been treated really with a lot of monster reveals, all brand new monsters and a couple of returning ones. So yeah, I essentially just wanted to make this video, just go over the monsters we have already, the ones that have been shown, and which monsters, based on those, may be likely to return, at least for me anyway. So if you agree with this, if you like this video, just make sure to subscribe, hit a like as well. Really appreciate any comments as well. I love reading comments and responding because everybody's got some really cool theories in this community, so it makes it interesting to keep making these videos for you guys. So yeah, without further ado, starting with number one, it is Tetsu Cabra. Is one of the first monsters we're going to fight, if not the very first one. As you can see, based on what we know, it looks like to be one of the most low tier monsters, if not the lowest tier monster again. And from its existence being an amphibian, you know, having all the amphibian animations, having all that interesting stuff going on, I feel like it's only right that we get Tetsu Cabra. Obviously the name's similar as well, they got both basically two different Cabra monsters, so it could be a relative somewhere. And of course, like I said, I wanted the amphibians more than anything to be expanded on because we don't have many whatsoever. Obviously, Tetsu Cabra, Zamtris, and Pteranodon, I believe, are the, on top of my head, are the only ones we have, other than obviously Tetsu Cabra once Wilds is released. So yeah, having Tetsu Cabra back will be great. Tetsu Cabra being an amphibian, obviously it's orange with a bit of indigo coloration as well. It's got some large tusks, which are, there's a few monsters out there with also those types of tusks, so there's a few that I may consider relating to Tetsu Cabra, but as I'm relating it to Tetsu Cabra here, I think Tetsu is the perfect companion alongside it. Obviously it does inhabit the Sunken Hollow, and it's known to ambush its prey from pools of water, and as we've seen in the Monster Hunter Wilds Windward Plains, even showing on one of the trailers when we first get a look at Tetsu Cabra for the very first time, there is a little oasis area, and I believe Tetsu Cabra would fit perfectly in that little area. Now I've seen obviously some gameplay, I don't know how many of these there are, maybe it's just that one, but yeah, that type of area I think Tetsu Cabra would be a perfect fit for. And also it can be seen in ice maps in the Everwood, so it can also fit in the other locales, but Tetsu Cabra for me is the one that makes most sense when comparing to Tetsu Cabra. So I'm going to put Tetsu as the first monster to return based on a monster we have already in the roster for Wilds. Next, we're going to go for everybody's favourite punch bag in the Wilds demo, which has been Doshiguma, of course. That's the quest that everybody got access to. Doshiguma looks like a big bear. I mean, it has the big bear feature standing up on its back legs and everything. Got a bit of lion, I guess, if you want to count that mane as more like a lion's mane. But for me, the very obvious one here is everybody's favourite serial killer bear, Gosar Rag from Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak. I mean, I don't really need to really go too deep into this one. It's pretty obvious if you look at both of the creatures' bodies and the way they're structured, the way they move. There's just so many similarities here. Obviously Gosar Rag has its ice shenanigans with the blades, well, there's dual blades plus the bull or whatever you want to call it, and it's also one of the most beloved monsters from Monster Hunter Rise. I know for certain that's one of my favourite fights in the entire game. I fought that a lot. Just breaking the swords was so satisfying. The noise hitting the ice, it's just, you know, one of those things. You just get like a little dopamine hit every time you break those. So yeah, I think Gosar Rag fits perfectly here. Obviously we don't have an ice locale shown as of yet, but I'm predicting there will be one, so that is a possibility. And like I said in my previous video, or one of my previous videos when I discussed monsters that I want to return, that maybe they could even have a Gosar Rag subspecies, but it doesn't have shenanigans, but maybe it'll fit in the Windward Plains or maybe in the forest somewhere. So have a different mechanic in that regard. That'd be pretty interesting, since he didn't get a subspecies in Sunbreak, which was criminal considering the amount of subspecies that we got for other monsters that was in the base game. So yeah, I think everybody will be happy to see Gosar Rag back. So I'll be locking in that pick for the comparison to Doshiguma. The next monster, I see the resemblance, I see the similarities. Some people may not, maybe I'm reaching, but I'm going for Balahara here, which is obviously the Sand Leviathan. And for comparison, I will say the likely monster from what we've seen with Balahara to return would be Najarala. Now, obviously we have the name, to me, Balahara, Najarala. I mean, to me, there's something there, I guess, but the name is not really that important. To me, is even though Balahara is a Leviathan and Najarala is obviously a Snake Wyvern, which we don't really have a whole lot of, and we desperately need that to be revived, and we need some more members to that. I think the way that Balahara moves, especially, you know, when it's burrowing under sand, the way it comes out of the sand, and even more so in its turf war with Doshiguma, you see it wrapping itself around. It's like very snaky, even though it is a Leviathan. I think there is some connection there, because even though the skeletons may be different, the animations don't really have to differ too much if they're similar enough. And I feel like the way it wraps itself around the Doshiguma is very reminiscent of what a snake would do, and I really do believe they could use the exact same resources to do the exact same thing with a snake wyvern like they did with a Leviathan, like Balahara at least. Obviously Balahara to me doesn't really feel like the other Leviathan, doesn't look or have that many similarities with the Leviathan that we got shown recently, which I will obviously get into later on in the video. But to a snake, I believe it does have that very sneaky feel. So I'm going to say Najarala to return to bring back the Snake Wyverns 4 months into Wilds based on its similarities with Balahara, our sandworm. Yep. The next monster is going to be the very recently revealed Quatri, which is a brute wyvern. It is a chicken brute wyvern, which is in itself is just funny to me, but I like it. I like what I see, and it's one of those that I can't wait to fight, just to see what it's like to experience that fight. But one very interesting fact about the Quatri is that it has a flaming tail. And you probably know where I'm going to go with this. Who else has a flaming tail and that is in the main series and is a very popular monster? It's obviously Glavenus. So for me, Glavenus is the monster I go for. I know one's a chicken and one is basically a Carnotaurus dinosaur, but having the fire element and the fire element being very prevalent in its tail, I just feel like it just makes sense to me. There's not really much to say about this one, so Glavenus to come back as a, not relation, but similar species to Quatri, I think to me, that sounds good. Agree? Now, the next monster is everybody's favourite railgun. Everybody loves this monster. It's Rey Dau, of course, the apex of the Windward Plains. And this one was a little bit tricky for me because there's so many options, because it's just a flying wyvern, really. I didn't know which way to go about it. Go for the element, go for the body shape, whatever it may be. Obviously, I had a lot of options here. Congalala was going to be one of them, because obviously everybody called it Thormagala, so I think that would be funny. And also the body shape and stuff, when we first saw it was kind of similar. But as we've gone and saw more in trailers and in gameplay, I don't think it's quite as similar anymore, now that we can actually have a good proper look at it. So what I've gone here, it was between Astalos and Seregios, and I'm just going to go with Seregios because I think Seregios, it looks, even though Astalos has the whole lightning stuff going on as well, even though it's green lightning, I just feel like it looks a little bit more like a Seregios type of monster, and I feel like Seregios would complement the Windward Plains a lot. And I also think that in terms of the way they look, in terms of how he looks and Rey Dau looks, they just have some very glaring similarities, and I just think it would make sense. I know he returned in Monster Hunter Rise, was it Rise or Sunbreak? One of those. But regardless, his fight was so fun, even though it had some very widespread hits and sometimes it was hard to dodge. It's one of the most popular monsters as well. Everybody loves Legus. I mean, the animations it has, everything is just so unique. And I just feel like in Wilds it would really shine in terms of having those in a next-gen, high graphic, high fidelity manner. This is, to me, just a preference really, so could be either Astalos or Seregios, but I'm going to go Seregios. I think he makes a little bit more sense, in my opinion, of course. Next, we've had Congalala returning and revealed, not even in a trailer, just in general gameplay, which I thought was very subtle. It reminded me of when they showed Barioth in a random, I think it might have been GameSpot, I don't remember, a random video, just in the background. It was just like, oh, there's Barioth, not even announced, but yep, he's there. So yeah, same with Congalala. And the monster that I want to complement Congalala is going to be an obvious one again, and it's going to be Blangonga, because it's just essentially the ice counterpart to Congalala. Obviously, they've got similar-ish names in terms of the structure. You got the Lala and then Gonga. I mean, it just makes sense to me. But yeah, it might as well be Congalala's distant cousin who lives in the snowy mountains, essentially. It's got a nice ailment, which is the ice blight, and also they have the snowman status, which is unique. So if you get inflicted with the snowman status in Wilds, I think that'll be pretty cool. And again, just like I said earlier on, we don't know if there's a nice map or not. I predict there is, so Blangonga should be one of the monsters we find there, in my opinion, and I don't think anybody would really have anything against that, to be honest. Blangonga's a cool monster, and it should return. Next is everybody's favourite starter flying wyvern. I say everybody's favourite about a lot of things, but this one's an obvious one, and it's obviously Yankuk-Ku, the very latest monster to be revealed. This was revealed at the Tokyo Game Show, and I don't think many people was expecting to have that subtle reveal in the trailer that we had already seen. But anyway, Twitter went into a frenzy. Everybody was gassed. Like, everybody just liked seeing Yankuk-Ku back in. It's looking so good as well. They've done such a good job, and I did make a video on this, so if you want to check out my theory on how he's going to work, then check my previous post out. But yeah, so we've got Yankuk-Ku, and another one that's going to be a bit obvious to add in regards to the similarities with Yankuk-Ku, and that's going to be Yangaruga. Yangaruga, it was in Monster Hunter World, he returned there, but I feel like he should return again because he is one of the few bird wyverns that are actually taken very seriously, because he is, although a bird wyvern which typically you don't think of any monsters that are of incredible strength and incredible power and danger, but Yangaruga is by far the opposite of that, because I mean, we saw him fighting a Devil Joe. Like, he literally did a spinning tail swipe out of Devil Joe after being thrown straight through rocks in the Guiding Lands. He has the ability to poison you. He has the ability to set you on fire. He has like a machine gun type of fire attack, and then he has the bigger blue fire explosion attack. I think Yangaruga is literally the epitome of being the alpha of a species that it's not really known for the power. Something that I've been asking for the Pisces wyverns, for example, something like that. So Yangaruga coming back in to being a dangerous bird wyvern is probably the best. And whilst I have my theories about how Yankuk-Ku is going to work in Wilds, this could just be another way that we get them to work in the way that I predicted, which is in my previous video. If you really want to go and have a look and watch that, I think you'd be quite intrigued and potentially agree, or maybe even disagree. But yeah, either way, Yangaruga comes back in Wilds. I think everybody will be happy. Next, I'll go with Lalabarina, our Bailarina Rose spider monster. We've seen more of her, we've seen a bit more gameplay of her and how she works and everything like that. We've seen more of the turf war with Doshiguma, and yeah, it's a spider monster, so I mean, it's going to be obvious we're going to be picking Nilla here, but just any spider, any insect type monster. I'll stick with spider just because it's obviously going to be the closest relative. So Nilla to me is the perfect choice here. We need more spiders. We need more Temnocerans. So just add in the classic. Everybody that's played the old games knows Nilla. Everybody likes Nilla, and it's always an interesting fight, as the spiders usually are. Could have also picked Raknikadaki, but I feel like Nilla just deserves it more because, you know, Raknikadaki has just been in Rise and Sunbreak, so bringing Nilla back would make for a very interesting return, and I would love to see an Nilla versus Lalabarina turf war. I want to see two spiders fighting it out properly. I think that would be so good to see. I don't think it's something we've obviously had in the past. I mean, with turf wars really coming into World only, and obviously there's no spider monsters, and then there was only Raknikadaki plus Pi Raknikadaki in Rise and Sunbreak. So yeah, having a turf war between both of the spiders for territory, I think it has potential to be a very nice little spectacle mid-hunt. So I really want to see Nilla back for that reason alone, and also because he just deserves to come back. We've got a new spider, bring back the OG, and we've got the best of both worlds, really. So yeah, Nilla, please return. Next, we have the apex of the Scarlet Forest, which is Uth Duna, a very large, really cannot emphasize how large it looks on both the trailers and a little bit of gameplay that we saw. A Leviathan in the Scarlet Forest, as I say. A lot of attacks which involve it being submerged in water and coming out and splashing at you. It looks like it might be one of my favourite monsters, I'm not gonna lie. I love water-based monsters. I love Leviathans, and Uth Duna, there's so many things about it that I like already. So yeah, Uth Duna is the monster we'll go for, and obviously fan service here, and for my sake as well, it's going to be Legus, because why not? It's another very large Leviathan, another Leviathan that is in water a lot, although it does obviously include some electric attacks, and it was underwater mainly. We don't have underwater combat, unfortunately. They have confirmed that yet again as of late, so yeah. But the way that Uth Duna works, it looks like there's like a space within a specific area where you can't physically get to, but Uth Duna does swim there. It's in like the deeper water. So I feel like if Legus came back, this could be a way of implementing that without adding the whole underwater combat. So I think, based on the fact that he was also in World as a prototype and obviously was scrapped ultimately, they have been itching to bring him back. They didn't bring him back in Rise and Sunbreak. I believe they had a reason for that. I think Legus will be in. I will be very shocked if he's not in. And I feel like him and Uth Duna should be the ones battling it out for the Apex status. Obviously, they're going to make the Apex the new monster rather than a returning one, for obvious reasons in terms of how the story looks to be playing out. But yeah, I would go with Legus just for the Leviathan resemblance with Uth Duna. They don't look exactly the same at all, but obviously being big Leviathans, being in water, everything makes sense to me. So yeah, Legus, I've got my candles out. I'm praying to everybody, please bring it back. And last but not least, I believe I've not missed anybody other than Rathalos, which would just be Rathian, so I don't really need to go over that. But Arkveld, which is our flagship monster, this was a very tough one. I didn't really know where to go with this one, I'm not gonna lie. So I've just been looking at its design, looking at everything possible, and this may sound a bit weird, but it technically doesn't. But I'm gonna go with a Cantor. So if you look at Arkveld, you see the big tusks again, just like with Tetsu Cabra, as I said earlier on in this video. That's about the resemblance I can really see. However, even though a Cantor doesn't have wings or anything, it's still always been classified as a flying wyvern. So we don't know what Arkveld's category is, but we know he flies, and to me, it just looks like a flying wyvern with chains. So I'm gonna go with it. I'm just gonna roll with it. I want a Cantor back so bad anyway. So this gives me a reason to include him in yet another list. But yeah, a Cantor coming back in, potentially being the final boss of the story would be great, although I don't think they'd have that as a returning monster per se. But although I don't think many people would really complain about having the big black god back in the new generation, especially with how good it looks, despite the graphic restrictions we've had in the past, we can just tell just how good that monster looks. Imagine it redone, redesigned again into the graphics and the fidelity of Monster to Wilds that we've been seeing so far. I just don't think anybody would be ready for that, to be honest. I know how wouldn't. The excitement of knowing that a Cantor would be returning would just be a little bit too much for me. But I really want it to happen. So yeah, Arkveld and a Cantor, I guess, you know, Tusks make some similarities there. I mean, what else can you say? So yeah, a Cantor. And that about wraps it up, really. I hope I didn't miss any monsters out. I'm going to feel very stupid if I have. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope this has made sense. I hope you liked the discussion. And let me know if there's any monsters that you feel like could return based on what we have seen. Could even include some of the small monsters, perhaps, based on what we've seen so far, though, rather than just what you want to see. I feel like I want that discussion to happen, and I want to see what people come out with and monsters I may have overlooked whilst doing this video. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Like and subscribe again if you're new. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs before Wilds releases, so I really would appreciate all the support. So yeah, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.